I think it's funny that there was those 3 days where people in the U.S. were talking about cricket, and then we forgot
Yeah.
it existed again.
Well, they never knew it existed before that, and then all of a sudden,
Yes.
wait, we're good at it for a minute? Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome back to the C&C Talks podcast, our season finale, episode 30 of season 3. We were planning on doing 40 episodes this year. Stuff got in the way. We're doing
We just
30
kind of
episodes
got
this
to
year.
record sometimes in the second half of the year, but oh well, it happens.
Yep. We'll be back, of course, with season 4 starting in January. More on that towards the end of our show. But Charlie, why don't you do your part of the intro? Because we haven't done this in a while. I think we've forgotten how.
We have to practice. We do episodes every week. We might want to remove that actually from the intro.
Yeah.
We talk about politics, world events, and sports. As of taping this, it is Friday, December 27th, 2024, at about 7 p.m. Pacific for Colin and about 10:30 Eastern for me.
How does that work if it's 7 for me but 10:30 for you? I don't think that we're 3.5 hours off.
Colin, I read the time off the script and I read the time off of my computer.
Okay, that's fine. All right, we're gonna get into the show.
Your job and actually fixed the script before we recorded. This wouldn't have happened.
We maybe just banter more in the intro. It would be fun.
Yes, no, we absolutely should. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on to the news,
Yeah.
because we have missed quite a lot. For example, before we left, we had Assad's government still existing in Syria. South Korea's government had almost collapsed, and the United Health Care CEO was still alive. Plus, we've gotten some more news on Trump's tariff threats and his threats toward Canada as well. But yeah, let's get into some of those, shall we?
Yeah, let's start with a story that really captivated a lot of people for a long time: the shooting of
and still
United
is
Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which was allegedly committed by Luigi Mangione. We use the term allegedly because he, as an American, is presumed innocent until proven guilty. He has not yet faced a trial. He will presumably face a fair trial in New York City on the first-degree murder charges, and we'll see what comes of that. I think that the evidence highly suggests, Charlie, that he was the one that committed this crime. It was really kind of a wild murder, right? Like,
yes, and
he snuck out from behind a car, I think, this was in broad daylight in Midtown Manhattan, shot the guy.
Did they not also catch him at a McDonald's?
Yeah, he was caught at a McDonald's, I think, with
how does that happen?
Gun and allegedly a copy of the manifesto or something. I don't know, because the thing was, it seemed like
that sounds real shady to me.
No, I feel like we'll get some parts of the story, and maybe it's just how it was reported by the media, right? Because there were so many inconsistencies in the reporting, as there often
we
is.
Have quite a bit of hindsight with us right now.
Yeah, sure.
We're recording this a month and a half late.
Sure, but
not that far, but you get the idea.
Sure. But a lot of the details just don't feel like they add up, right? This is not to get all conspiratorial, right? It's likely just a ton of mixed reporting on it, but the details are just kind of odd. Because right, they were tracking him on cameras in New York City, but some of the photos that they released of the suspect did not appear to be him. They appeared to look like two completely different people. Right, it was odd because it seemed like he had planned his escape pretty well, seemed to have left little trace, and yet there were still a few instances where we saw him with his mask off, and then he was just at the McDonald's with the gun that he used in the copy of the manifesto. The whole thing is just kind of weird.
He was getting the McRib. That's what he was doing. Yeah,
I don't know. So this guy Luigi Mangione, the alleged murderer in this case, it's weird because it seems that he was not on United Healthcare, right? And yet he left the on the bullet casings or something, left the word like delay, deny, and defend, I think, which are like three of the most common tactics that insurance companies use to deny care towards their clients. And this is a whole other discussion that we'll get into in a second, but the motive is still questionable. Right? I feel like it's because of some amount of just being fed up at the healthcare industry, but at the same time, right, he wasn't on this insurance, so this again is just some mixed signals that we're getting here. But Charlie, this does lead into something that I do really want to talk about and spend most of this segment talking about, because I think it's the interesting part, is the amount of support that he's gotten. Not just the people that don't feel sympathy for this guy, Brian Thompson, the CEO, his death, but the people that are actively celebrating his murder, the people that are treating Luigi Mangione like he's some sort of hero. Um, I think it's a complicated case when you see this much support from it. I think there was a poll out that something like a majority of people under 30 are celebrating it. So I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think, Brian Thompson and the whole, healthcare industry have done a lot of things that they should not do. The healthcare denial rate for people who have been paying for years and doing everything they should be doing is absolutely appalling. Given that, even though that is very true, you cannot assassinate people. The actions that he took, if he did indeed do them, or whoever did do them, that is unacceptable, and that cannot be promoted in American society or in any society that should call itself a decent and modern society. You cannot be praising stuff like that. That shouldn't have happened. It doesn't matter how bad the actions that Brian Thomas and the healthcare industry has done. You cannot be doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I I have mixed thoughts on this. First of all, I just think murder is bad. Right? Like let's start there, okay?
Which should
Let's say
frankly
something
be
that
obvious.
should be agreeable by everybody. Murder is bad. And if we get to a point where society is ruled by essentially by vigilante justice, that is a very dangerous thing. And yes, I think it's perfectly reasonable and on the table to talk about United Healthcare and what they have done under Brian Thompson and under previous CEOs as well, right? The healthcare industry in this country is fundamentally broken. It just is. We've seen all the stories that people have had over the last few weeks in the aftermath of this murder, and United Healthcare is probably the worst of all of them. They twice the denial rate of any of the average for insurance companies. Right? It's horrific what these people have done. They United Healthcare has likely led to the death or displacement from homes of hundreds of thousands of people over the years. Right? People should not have to choose between having a house over their head or having healthcare. People should not have to choose between having food on the table and having healthcare. United Healthcare, which is supposed to, provide insurance for people, they deny claims and as a result get rich. Brian Thompson lived his life as a man who got rich off of other people's misfortune and made their misfortune worse as a means to enrich himself and his company. Right?
Yep.
Those are facts. Just however you want to look at the situation, I feel like those are facts that we have to start off with. And so from there, personally, I have a very, very difficult time having any empathy for him. I feel like it's very difficult to have empathy for a person that led to the deaths of many other people, right? I would have empathy for him if he had empathy for any of the hundreds of thousands of people that he helped cause die. And yet, that does not mean that I should be celebrating his murder. There's a difference between between not feeling bad about it and actively celebrating it. And for me, that's where that line's drawn. And here's the thing, though. I do as much as I hate to say it, I understand where the people that are celebrating it are coming from, even if I disagree with them. Right? I don't think the murder was justified, and I think some of the reasons for that are that, again, you cannot allow that to be how our society is run, right? And also, I don't think this accomplished anything. You could argue it accomplished that people are talking about how broken our healthcare system is. Okay, great. And what's that going to accomplish? Nothing. But at the same time, and right, that's my take on it. But I get these other people's takes. When I see that so many people are supporting and celebrating the murder of the CEO, I find that very troubling. But not in the way of like, oh, it's really bad that that there's these people that would celebrate this, but in the way that's like, it's really bad that our society has led people to this point because of the suffering that the healthcare system has caused. I've seen some takes that are like, well, when the healthcare system is this broken, and when the legal system is broken to a point where and corrupted to a point where that's not a meaningful method to get justice, then what other options do we have left than taking it upon ourselves? And I think, like, I get that. I think it's a dangerous thing, but I get it, right? Because it starts out with what I feel like is a true statement. The legal system is broken, the healthcare system is broken. And it's taken to a point of, okay, well, what other options do we have? Right? And I don't have a good answer to that question, is the problem. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say, well, vigilante justice is not the answer, and that's what I believe. But it's also very easy to see with how these people make that jump, because they're like, well, if nothing else is going to work, well, maybe this could, and at the very least, it's going to get people talking about the issue, which they've succeeded at. So, I think it was obviously bad and should not become a routine thing in our society, but I feel like it's a deeper thing than that, Charlie.
Okay. Should we move on and talk about? Let's get to some. Let's keep it in the U.S. Let's talk about what Trump has been up to. And he's been up to quite a bit. He's been discussing tariffs and potentially their impacts, and the fact that they could actually now potentially increase prices in the U.S., which he ran a good chunk of his campaign saying that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, now he's essentially saying, I don't know how to lower them. Yeah, we knew that.
Some of his moves, potentially at a move into Canada, and some of the concerns that the Canadian government is taking this very seriously, with Trump's joking that Canada could become the 51st state of the States.
I mean, you said we talk about Trump joking about it, but is he really joking? Like, in the last couple of weeks, Trump has essentially threatened to annex Canada, Greenland, and he wants to retake the Panama Canal. Is he joking? It's kind of hard to tell, and that's not a good thing. Because on the world stage, as a world leader, it should be very obvious if you're planning on annexing a country, right? This is one of the reasons why our U.S. allies lost faith in the United States back in Trump's first term in office, and why I believe he poses a national security threat is just unpredictability. You want someone in office that is predictable with what they're going to do, because otherwise there's a good chance you're going to end up starting some sort of major conflict. And annexing Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal would be certainly an aggressive move, to say the least. We could spend a long time getting into why that's a very, very bad idea and a dangerous idea, but I think that should be pretty obvious to everyone.
Yes, and while I don't think the U.S. should make a move like that, I do, just like logistically, the question is, if we do take Greenland, what's Denmark gonna do?
I mean, nothing. Well, what's Canada gonna do if we try to annex them? Nothing. But that doesn't mean that, we should go annex one of our closest allies, especially, like, what does NATO do in that situation? What happens, actually, this is actually a really interesting question. What happens when a NATO country is attacked by another NATO country?
I don't know.
Because we'd never think it would come up, right? Because who in their right mind attacks their military ally? It doesn't happen. But Trump just wants to blow it all up, right? This is not the lowering prices that he promised. And of course, like, I knew that he was not going to have success there, and that was not really what he was interested in when becoming president. Annexing Canada isn't quite the level that I thought we were going to get to, but we might be there.
Yes, and obviously he hasn't taken office yet. There's no way that we can have any guarantee about what any of this will come. But we here at C&C Talks don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, so we will keep you updated on this as this situation develops, as Trump comes into office, and as this developing situation continues. Let's move on to South Korea, shall we?
Yeah, South Korea's had an interesting few weeks. Their president declared martial law, got rid of martial law after massive protests, got impeached, and then the acting president just got impeached.
How does that happen? Like, okay.
Which part?
Well, so if you are a president, most presidents are, in control of the military.
Sure.
And the military, has the ability to stop regular civilians from going places. So how on earth, if you, as control of the military, tried to launch martial law, how did... no, I'm obviously happy that it didn't succeed, but how on earth do you fail at that?
I mean, massive protests can work, right? Like, there are times, like, it's not that common anymore, but there are times when massive people-powered movements have worked. And
Yeah,
this is
that's
one of
true.
them.
It is very rare.
Good, right? Like, martial law is in most situations bad, right?
Yes, and
is that way oversimplifying it? Not really, honestly.
Yeah, no, not really.
Let's move on, Charlie.
Yes.
Let's talk about Syria and what's happened there over the last few weeks.
Well, a lot has happened. Well, first of all, I think we should get into the big news that Assad's government has collapsed very rapidly. Rebel forces, who are led by a previous leader in which group was it? Colin?
I don't remember the name of the leading group.
No. The leader was a former leader in a different group. I don't remember if it was ISIS or Al Qaeda or one of the two of them.
Oh, I think it was Al Qaeda.
Yeah, I think it was Al Qaeda. He and this group have successfully fought a very short offensive that has knocked Assad's government out of power and actually has sent Assad essentially into exile in Russia. But the region, the Syrian region, is anything but stable. Still, there is still some questions about because Israel has made a small incursion along the border. There's some questions along what that's going to be. There's still Kurdish and Turkish forces in the north. Still some questions about how that might be. There's also apparently some protests in the along the coast as well. So obviously a very unstable situation. We will see what comes of this new government, if this government is to last, and if it isn't, or if it is.
Yeah,
what may happen next?
Yeah, I think that really, at the end of the day, that the two main takeaways are, number one, Assad is out, right? And that is a huge relief to so many people in the region, right? We're talking about one of the most brutal dictators in the world.
Yes.
And he's fled to, I believe, to Moscow.
Yes, he is.
And by the way, this hurts Russia quite a bit, from a military standpoint.
Assad was really Russia's only super great link into the Middle East.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Then I would say the second main takeaway, though, is that even though Assad is gone, it's going to be a long time until we truly have stability in Syria, if that's even possible.
Yep.
Right, like, just because there was a little bit of progress does not mean that we're anywhere near where we need to be in terms of Syria being a stable country. It's just not. Charlie, I think it's time for your stat of the week.
Yes, it is. And, before we get to that, I just want to say that we have a little update coming to Stat of the Week for next season. We are going to be keeping track. We're going to be keeping a scoreboard for who, for if you get it, if I manage to successfully make a stat that you don't get. Obviously, there'll be a level. I'm not going to make them impossible every single time. I'll make them possible. Anyway. So today's stat of the week, on the Christmas games in the NBA, in the first game, the New York Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs, both Victor Wembanyama and Miles Bridges dropped 50 points. The first time that has happened in a Christmas game since what year?
Since players on each team dropped 50?
Yes, in a Christmas game.
In a Christmas game. Oh boy. I have to imagine it's been a long time. Like, has it happened this century?
No, it was not this century.
Yeah, that's because nobody, we never see times when players on both teams drop 50. That never happens. I'm gonna go with some point in the 1970s.
It was 1961 in Madison,
Oh.
in Madison Square Garden. Both in 61. Chamberlain and Richie Guillen both went for 40, and then Robertson and Elgin Baylor both went for 40.
Yeah.
Anyway, that will do it for Stat of the Week for this year.
Yep.
But next year, Colin, you better start getting these right because we'll be keeping score.
I think this was our first full season of Stat of the Week too. We've done various iterations.
Speaking of keeping score, and we'll get back to this when we talk about the NFL. Colin, you are completely destroying me this fantasy season. Good news is the punishment is that you don't have to do the punishment from last time, so nothing happens to me, which I am fine with. But next year, if we continue this, which I'm sure we will, we have no idea, we have no plans on stopping anytime soon, do we?
Yeah.
We'll come up with something next time.
Yeah. We will, when we talk about the NFL, we will talk about our fantasy teams, or our version of fantasy. If you've been a long time listener of this podcast, then you know what we're talking about. If not, we'll explain it.
If you're new, we'll get to that in a
but
little while.
We're going to start with talking about college football, specifically, Charlie, the college football playoff after a first round that was full of blowouts, right? Just to be completely honest, right?
Yes.
They were not good games. Notre Dame killed Indiana.
People are going to ask, Colin. The huge question people are going to ask: did the committee get it right? Yes. Well, yes, they did.
So I think the first place to turn, Charlie, when talking about this question is: did the committee get it right originally? Before the games, did you think the committee got it right?
Yes.
And for me, the answer was yes. For me, there wasn't really an argument to put a 3-loss Alabama team that had lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma into the playoffs.
Alabama would have gotten obliterated by Penn State.
Well, so the question in hindsight is that did the committee get it right? Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what happened in the games. That actually doesn't change my view on whether they got it right. You do not have to validate your inclusion in the playoff.
Well, yes, and the answer, by the way, is still yes. The college football playoffs have never been known for giving us particularly good games.
Yeah, exactly. In the 14 playoff, there were a lot of bad games. There were good games. There were a few, but there were also some real clunkers over the years. The majority of the games were not good football games. But as for did they get it right? I'm sick of hearing this argument. I'm sick of people like Kirk Herbstreit saying, I don't care about wins. Well, what do you care about then? You can't just say, oh, I care about strength of schedule, which is a frankly made up metric. Right? It's easy. You can just go off of strength of schedule based on whoever you played in terms of wins, but no, they take other things into account as well into strength of schedule.
West. It's not their fault.
Yeah, exactly.
They played who they played, who were put in front of them, and they destroyed them all.
Yeah, you play the games that are on your schedule. Because teams like Alabama had a tougher schedule, because teams like Ole Miss had a tougher schedule, they were afforded the opportunity to lose more. Charlie, if Alabama went 10-2 If Ole Miss went 10-2, if South Carolina went 10-2,
They would be in the
would they be
playoff.
included in the playoff?
Yes, absolutely.
And should they be included in the playoff if, say, Alabama had just beat Oklahoma or beat Vanderbilt and nothing else had changed?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, of course they should have. But here's the problem. You can't go yapping about how you have a tougher schedule, but the games you lost weren't part of that tough schedule. You lost to bad teams. I'm sorry. You just did.
If you are an SEC team with 3 losses trying to get into the playoffs, one of those losses being to Vanderbilt, and the other one being to Oklahoma
By the way, a game in which you scored 3 points.
Yes, in a game that wasn't even close.
Yeah.
You do not deserve to be anywhere near the playoffs. If that was any other team other than Alabama, no question. Like, for example, if that was if that was like USC or Washington, there wouldn't be a chance. Like if Washington went 3 losses in the old Pac-12 with losses to, let's say, if they lost to like, let's just say like a mid-level Big Ten team, and then like Oregon State and like UCLA, they wouldn't even be near the playoffs.
Correct. It's frankly a joke. The SEC is like, well, we're special. Are you? Look at what Tennessee did. Tennessee was your 2-loss team. Look at what they did at Ohio State. Nothing. They put up arguably the worst performance of the entire weekend.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I picked them to win.
Yeah, no, like what are we even talking about here? And like the SEC, it's also not as far above the other conferences as you all make it out to be. You know how I know that? Because Texas, a team that was fine for years, nothing special in the Big Ten, won the regular season title in year 1.
Yes. Now, Colin, here's the question.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a really big conversation about this if both Texas and Georgia lose in the second round?
So I don't think that they're going to. I think they both win. I could see Georgia losing to Notre Dame. Here's the thing about Notre Dame. I think they should have been ranked lower because they didn't really beat anyone in the regular season, and they had the loss to NIU that everyone seems to like to forget about. At the same time,
I think the best part is
they're a really good team.
I think the best thing is I mentioned the Northern Illinois game in my prediction video, and everyone in the comments was like, okay, but that shouldn't matter that they lost to Northern Illinois. I'm like, okay, why not?
Yeah, losses have to count. Right, here's the thing. I get when people say, like, well, we should judge a team at its best.
There's people saying, wins, who you lost to shouldn't matter. You got people saying who you won shouldn't, who your wins are shouldn't matter. Okay, so is it just based on what conference you're in then? Is it just going to be a 12-team SEC battle?
That's what they'd like. And right, here's the thing. There's the whole argument of best versus most deserving. Okay, so it's the best. It shouldn't be the most deserving. Okay, how do we judge the best? Based on what you did on the field, right? Sometimes I hear analysts say like, I guess what you do on the field has to matter to some extent. No, that's the only thing that matters. How you do on the field. Who you do it against, sure, right? A loss to Kent State and a loss to Oregon are very different things. But
I know the White Sox lost like 120 games, but the stadium's pretty good and the food's really good.
Yeah.
So put them in the playoffs; they'll be fine.
This is an interesting point that I think was made by I think it was Ari Wasserman of 3 Sports after the first round of the playoffs, which is that what the SEC is lobbying for here is it's dangerous to the sport, because what you're doing is you're saying that the games in the regular season shouldn't actually matter. That there shouldn't actually be a way for an Indiana or an SMU to play into the tournament. That those teams' games shouldn't matter because they're not a blue blood, or because they didn't have the best NFL prospects at the beginning of the season, or whatever. What these people are arguing for is essentially the regular season not to matter. And I find that to be an incredibly dangerous thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Charlie,
SEC, listen, if you guys want like your own tournament, we can give you your own tournament.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you guys want like your own like little postseason thing, you can have that.
Yeah. I think that's might be what we're going to. Like, Greg Sankey is maybe my least favorite person in all of sports.
No,
At
my
the
least favorite
SEC.
person my least favorite person is and will always be Chris Collinsworth.
Oh God.
I hate that guy.
I do not understand your hate for him, but whatever.
He's a Mahomes Glazer.
Charlie, the one thing that we haven't talked about in several weeks is the flag planting controversy at Ohio State.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Charlie, what are your thoughts about this?
Ohio State. It will never live that down if they don't win the national championship this year. First of all, Michigan won that game fair and square. Second of all, you probably shouldn't be planting a flag. 3, it was really funny, and I loved that. 4, you can't be trying to brawl because you lost a game. 4, you got to defend home turf. It's, you can see where I'm going with this. I'm giving, reasons for both sides. But also, Ohio State, you guys cannot be trying to pass some stuff saying that you can't do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. The state legislature trying to pass a law in the state saying that it's a felony to plant a flag in the middle of Ohio Stadium is one of the single softest things I've seen in my life.
Yeah, no, that is genuinely awful.
It made what was already right. That loss to Michigan was embarrassing, humiliating. They cannot lose that game. You validated Michigan's entire season. It was your best chance to win that rivalry in a long time. It'll be your best chance for a while because next year you have to go back to Ann Arbor and what will be a much improved Michigan team. I don't think Ryan Day should be given the opportunity to coach that game again. Apparently, Ohio State doesn't agree with me. But this started out as a humiliating loss for Ohio State. This may have turned it into the most humiliating loss of all time.
Yes. Now, here's the thing. Will it be redeemed if they win the national championship? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Are they going to? No.
I think that they will because I think that they're just better than everyone else, and I don't agree with the people
Colin,
say
they're not better
Ryan
than
Day can't coach a big game. Ryan Day can't coach against Michigan. That's different than him not being able to coach a big game. He's had.
Colin, have you seen him play Penn State?
He's won every time.
Yeah, but not by much.
He still wins those big games. But he's lost some big games too, right? He lost that playoff game to Georgia, right? He lost the game to Oregon this year. But
honestly, but Colin, can you really say that the Ohio State Georgia game was his fault?
No. I mean, I think he shouldn't have played for a field goal, but whatever. This is where I'll go from here, though. Back to the flag planting thing. And to what actually took place on the field. Should Michigan have done that? I mean, I think it's somewhat unsportsmanlike. I don't really care much one way or the other. But here's the thing. All of the Ohio State fans whining about it, the Ohio State players that went to brawl with the Michigan players over it, and then Ryan Day afterwards saying, well, that they were trying to, disrespect our field or whatever, and we weren't going to let that happen, trying to be all tough. That was the most fight you showed all day. You got your ass kicked in that game against a significantly inferior roster. That was the most fight you showed.
Frankly bad Michigan team.
Yes, well, we aren't gonna let that happen. Okay, you know how you don't let that happen? You beat the game on the field. You win the game, one of the easier games on your schedule, to be completely honest. You win the game, and none of it happens. But so don't give me any of that. We're not going to let that happen. You had your chance to do that, and you blew it. End of story.
Yep.
All right, Charlie. Let's get to the NFL, and let's start by talking about the greatest NFL game of all time. I'm clearly talking about Bears Seahawks on Thursday Night Football this past week.
Yep.
This happened, I guess.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Here's another fun stat for you, Colin.
Yeah.
The last 2 times that we have had a 3-6 game in the NFL,
yeah,
the Seahawks have played in both of them.
Really?
Yep. It was in 2011 against the Browns, and we lost.
Oh God. Charlie, to me, the Chiefs look back.
Yes. Can they beat Buffalo? I don't think so. Can they beat Baltimore?
Yes.
I don't think so. But should they rush Patrick Mahomes? Probably, but they won't. But yeah, the Chiefs are starting to look dangerous again.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to happen, and at the end of the day, in the calendar year of 2024, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to lose one game.
Which is incredible.
That's incredible. It doesn't end up. It doesn't matter how you do it, and they certainly looked flawed numerous times. But
yes. Oh, Colin, just one more thing for you, by the way.
Yeah.
That Cleveland-Seattle game from 2012.
Yeah.
Here's some names that you might that I think you might recognize that I think are pretty funny. Seattle's passing yards, rushing, and receiving leaders were Charlie Whitehurst, Leon Washington, and Sidney Rice.
Oh, Sidney Rice. I like Sidney Rice.
Yeah, Whitehurst went 12 for 30 for 97 yards and a pick. And you know who the Browns quarterback was?
Who?
Colt McCoy.
Oh boy.
Yep.
All right, let's stay in the AFC. We talked about the Chiefs. Let's talk about the wild card race there. The Steelers have locked up a spot in the playoffs regardless. They could still win that division over the Ravens. I don't think it's going to happen. But the Chargers, the Broncos, the Colts, the Dolphins, the Bengals. I mean, Charlie, could any of those lower teams, those 7 and 8 teams, the Colts, Dolphins, or Bengals, could they, do you think, leapfrog the Chargers and or Broncos?
I think it's possible. I think Cincinnati could do it, but it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I mean, Cincinnati has the toughest schedule. The other two teams have an easy schedule.
Yeah, Cincy, Indy, and Miami all have to win out, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, they need both the Broncos and the Chargers to lose out, and I think they need a couple of things to go their way.
Yeah. I think the Bengals' only path is if the Colts and or Dolphins drop a game. Actually, I think they both have to drop a game, and they play some bad teams down the stretch.
Yeah.
So
I'm also noticing, and I hadn't actually noticed this, there's this massive gulf in the AFC. You have the Patriots up through the Jets, who are horrible.
Yeah, just awful.
And then you have the Bengals through the Colts. Sorry, the Bengals through the Chargers, who are all right, and then you have the Steelers through the Chiefs, who are all really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that the Texans could be in that lower conversation. We just don't talk about them because they've locked up that division because there's no one else good in it. But I think really the story of this year is just how bad the bad teams are.
Yeah. I mean, right now there's only one team with two wins, that being the Giants, who were my pick actually to get the number 1 overall pick, in which they'd probably pick either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward.
Sure.
I would argue that they could probably get more use out of Ashton Genty, given whatever quarterback they get, they're going to ruin it. Equally true of the Bears, who Caleb Williams looks good. Guys, please get him an O-line. He's gonna die if you don't.
Well, but here's the problem for the Bears, right? It's not just that they're an incompetent franchise. It's that let's pretend that at the end of this season they suddenly become a competent franchise.
Look at your division real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
You have
4 teams in the NFC have locked up a playoff spot.
3 of them are in the same
division. Has 3 of them.
Yes, and Colin, I remember, and this video never actually got published, but a video on my channel that I was working on at the beginning of the season, I had all 4 teams making the playoffs. I had the Lions and Vikings just about as good as they currently are. I had the Packers just actually about as good as they are, and I figured that the Bears were going to be 10-7.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing about the Bears is it started out looking promising. They were a play away from 5-2, and
then Washington broke their hearts, their spine, their entire defense, their entire offense, their entire O-line, broke the coach's brain, and then the entire team imploded.
Can we talk about how nobody on that team knows how to manage a clock? I was dying laughing watching the ending of that Seahawks-Bears game because right, I'm a Seahawks fan. Right, as soon as they called the timeout on that punt, where I had no idea why they were thinking of it about even punting there. As soon as they called that timeout, I was just like, the Seahawks aren't losing this game. The Bears are too incompetent to win. The Seahawks are going to win this game.
Yep, somehow.
And they did. Now, I feel like I've kind of had this feeling since kind of midway through the season that the Rams were going to end up going on a run and winning the division. It's good at the moment.
Yeah, but I also got to say, the Rams are not that good of a team.
No.
They're a first round exit.
Yeah, well, especially like we look at there's going to be two division champs in the NFC. The NFC West champ and the NFC South
They're
champ.
going to be fed to one of the Lions, Vikings, or Packers.
Exactly, and they're not good teams, right? The champions of those two divisions are going to be extremely
North at that point.
Yeah, like I think the Final Four in the NFC is going to be an NFC East team and 3 NFC North teams.
Yeah,
like that's what we're looking at the end of the day.
Yep.
I am curious about this ending in the NFC South. Charlie, I'm curious who you'd take at the moment, Falcons or the Buccaneers.
Well, one of them has Penix, the other one has Baker Mayfield, and I like Michael Penix. Also, actually, you know what I do need to check, actually? All I do know is that the Buccaneers play the Panthers, and the Falcons play, the Commanders.
The Buccaneers, sorry, the Falcons also play the Panthers in Week 18.
And who do the Bucks play who in Week 18?
The Saints.
And then who do the Falcons play the Panthers?
Yeah, Falcons play the
and
Panthers.
Falcons hold tiebreaker?
Yeah, tiebreaker the Falcons have because they beat the Buccaneers twice.
Yep. One of them was one of them in overtime?
Not sure.
Either way, to answer your question, give me Atlanta.
Yeah, the Atlanta-Washington game, that could be a really fun game on Sunday Night Football this week. I do look at
my thought is I don't think Atlanta is going to beat Washington, but I also think it would be really funny and absolutely like them for Baker Mayfield to find a way to lose to the Panthers.
That's fair.
Because I will say the Panthers this year have not looked atrocious.
They did at the beginning of the year for like the first few weeks,
and then they fixed Bryce Young.
Yeah, no, Bryce Young appears to be finding himself a little bit. Now I will say about the Falcons and about Michael Penix's debut. Charlie, Kyle Pitts. Yikes. We on the C&C Talks Twitter account at C&C Talks Podcast on Twitter. We posted a still from that frame as when that ball, the Penix interception, arrived at Kyle Pitts' hand, where the defender that ended up intercepting it was at the time. It was bad.
Yep.
Charlie, any other NFL points you want to make before we move on with the show?
No, I think that's just about it.
All right, let's talk NBA on Christmas Day. Charlie, these were 5 really good games that we had.
Yes, unlike the NFL.
Yeah. And right, you touched on that Spurs Knicks game. We saw the Celtics go down to the Sixers. We saw the Suns. The Suns had the biggest win. Timberwolves beat the Mavericks. Luka Doncic now injured for, I think he said like a month, which is according to Shams, I believe, which is a while.
Yeah, that's
Charlie,
not great.
The big game though, I didn't like the ending, but my God, was this a good game? Lakers Warriors.
Yeah, when those two play, good things seem to happen in terms of viewing experience. Well, not for you, but
Charlie, I was at the one in January.
Oh, I know you were. I was at the Huskies game.
Yeah, which was very similar in a lot of ways. In that Steph Curry hits a big shot with like 5 seconds left, and then they blow it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, did you see, by the way, that the G League affiliate of the Milwaukee Bucks picked up Jack Golke?
Yeah, I'm so happy with that.
Yeah, man's gonna be the next Curry, man. He's gonna start sinking threes, man.
Jack Golke is what's good about sports.
Yes, he is. Keep him away from Kentucky. I think they'll kill him if he gets there.
Yeah. Charlie, the other NBA headline is Mike Brown fired by the Kings. This was an interesting decision and one that I can't say I agree with.
Yep.
All right, Charlie, I think it's time to move on.
Oh, I do want to add one more thing, by the way. About my favorite team, the Hornets. Yes, we lost to the Wizards twice in 1 week.
Yep.
All part of the plan. Injury report for you for tomorrow's game. Tomorrow's game against the Thunder. We don't have Trey Mann. We don't have Grant Williams. We don't have LaMelo Ball. We don't have Brandon Miller, and we don't have Mark Williams.
So who's playing?
We're gonna lose by 70.
You're gonna have to forfeit this one.
Can we? I would rather that happen. I would honestly rather we just don't win for the rest of the season, so we can get the 1 seed. We can get the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, Charlie, let's move on to the year in review, and let's start with talking about what happened in politics this year. Obviously, the big story continued to revolve around Donald Trump, who had a very interesting year. Charlie, when do you ever hear that somebody was convicted in 34 felonies, almost assassinated, and then elected president? All in 1 year. That was Donald Trump's year.
Yes. Also, I want to in our predictions. We had absolutely no way of knowing that Biden was going to drop out.
We'll get to our predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was obviously the biggest political news this year, Charlie. The other thing, like you alluded to, Joe Biden drops out of the race after the terrible debate and the fallout from that. Democrats end up nominating Kamala Harris. Other election news, Charlie, Republicans keep the House. They retake the Senate. They will have full control over the government starting in 2025.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Supreme Court, a few decisions this year that were notable. Decision giving presidents immunity for official acts, or so they claim. Their decision overturning Chevron deference. This previous decision that gave significantly more power to regulators, as will gut groups such as the EPA, the FDA, other government entities such as those. Government at the end of this year, it stayed open despite more congressional chaos. We'll see what happens when the speakership vote next week. Oh God, that's only like a week away. Democrats held a very memorable nominating convention, a couple wild presidential debates this year. Ron DeSantis, his presidential campaign flamed out. Charlie, that was this year.
That's so strange to think about.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about the next thing in our politics review? A very interesting figure.
Let me find it. Where are we?
Bottom of page 1.
Oh, oh yes. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All right. Well, let's do this in as few words as possible. Brainworm, bear scandal, whale scandal, Trump affiliate. He's going to be the Health and Human Services Secretary.
Yep.
And he tried to be president, and it didn't work. Yes. So one more time: worm, bear, whale, failed president, Team Trump, health secretary.
Great.
That's
great.
in his year.
That's his year. That's an interesting year. I gotta say. Of course, the worm and the bear and the whale. This isn't stuff that happened to him this year. We just found out about it this year. Pretty crazy. Trump killed a border deal this year to help his election prospects. Again, yes, that was this year, guys. That was this year. The Harvard president, Claudine Gay, resigned. Charlie, again, that was this year. Barely. That was, I think, January 2nd, but that was this year. We talked about, the healthcare CEO was murdered. Congress banned TikTok this year. Kristi Noem wrote in her book about how she killed her dog. She's now been nominated for a cabinet position because, good things always happen to the worst people.
Yes.
Stock market hits historic highs. Alex Jones, Rudy Giuliani, they're finally held to account for their lies in the form of having to pay millions of dollars. Trump's speeches that he gave sound like that of a demented person talking about Wales versus electrocution or Hannibal Lecter, etc., etc.
Oh, yeah.
Biden pardoned his son. A bridge collapsed in Baltimore this year. Julian Assange was freed from custody. Bob Menendez, the senator, he was convicted. He resigned. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, was indicted. And Charlie, a feel-good story as well. Former President Jimmy Carter has made it to 100 years old and climbing.
All right, so let's get to the world news, shall we?
Go for it.
The Tories lost in the UK. Keir Starmer got elected prime minister. We'll see how much longer he lasts. Sweden officially joined NATO. The Peruvian president managed to hit historically low approval ratings. The conflicts in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas continue, as well as the conflict in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine. There were massive pro-Palestine protests on college campuses, as well as Israel continuing to commit what some people have considered war crimes in the Middle East. Assad has fled Syria. In more Middle East news, the Venezuelan election continues to spark controversy over what was very likely fraud. The South Korean government and president declared martial law, then got impeached. Then the acting president got impeached, so we really don't know what's going on there. And then both the French and German governments are in chaos. Colin, let's break that down.
Yeah. You want to talk a little more about the French and German aspects of that?
Yes, these are more recent. And actually, these are stuff that I don't actually really know that much about. I'm not actually exactly sure why the German government collapsed, or actually, for that matter, why the French one collapsed.
Well, the coalition that was put together in France, I know, was very unstable.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we get into our sports year in review?
Yes.
We have a lot of pages of this, guys. So buckle up.
All right. So
let's start.
The Olympics. We got DMCA'd a couple times.
We got what?
We got DMCA'd a couple times on our live streams. Thank you, International Olympic Committee.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah, we did do live streams on that. It's funny how I almost managed to forget that.
Okay. Colin, if any of us should forget it, it's the one who wasn't there for most of them.
Yeah, that's fair. Charlie, the Olympics started with a stunning opening ceremony on the River Sand.
Yes, and actually, so a weirdly enough, rather controversial one, actually.
Yes, but stunning nonetheless.
Everything has to be controversial nowadays.
Exactly. It was highlighted at the end with lighting the torch, which was a hot air balloon that lifted up into the sky as Celine Dion gave an iconic performance on the Eiffel Tower.
Absolutely.
The United States and China tied for most gold medals. The U.S. won the most overall medals. Charlie, let's talk about the track meet.
Oh yes, certainly for the U.S. had its highs and its lows. Noel Lyles winning the 100-meter. Quincy Hall staged a huge comeback to win the 400. Cole Hawker won the 1500. Fisher made the podiums in the 5K and the 10K. Kenneth Rooks has a huge final laps in the steeplechase. Julian Alfred won the women's 100-meter, first medal for St. Lucia. And then now we get into names that I'm bad at pronouncing, so I'll hand it back over to Colin.
Sha'Carri Richardson won 2 medals, a gold and a silver, after being disqualified in 2020 for the marijuana use. Sydney McLaughlin-Lavroni breaks her own world record again, wins the women's 400-meter hurdles. Never a doubt, also an incredible relay for her in the women's 400-meter relay. Unbelievable for split for her there. Gabby Thomas wins 3 golds on the track. For Sweden, Mondo Duplantis set records in the pole vault, more and more records. Charlie, you mentioned the lows for the United States in the track meet. I think the place to go there would be, as usual, the men's 100-meter relay was an absolute nightmare for the United States.
Oh, it was frankly it was a disaster.
Not surprising. They do it every time.
Yes, but this one was Colin, just can we remind everyone just what happened?
Yeah. They dropped the baton, I want to say, or it was a faulty handoff. They left the area where you could do a handoff. They had trouble with the baton.
Which, is how does that happen?
I mean, we would have trouble with the baton, in fairness. Also,
yes, but we're not Olympic athletes, Colin. I have far too much McDonald's for that.
That's fair. Simone Biles, Charlie, 3 more gold medals. Team, individual, all around, and the vault. In addition to a silver on floor, cements herself, Charlie, as the GOAT of gymnastics, unquestionably.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah. Leon Marchand awes the home crowd in the pool, the Frenchman, with 4 gold medals in the pool. Katie Ledecky, 2 more golds in what's possibly her final Olympics, the 800 and the 1500 meter freestyles. The USA beats Australia in the pool rivalry, both in total medals and in golds. A lot of people thought that would not happen, that this would be the year Australia does it. They're going to have to keep waiting.
Speaking of, Australia, breakdancing.
Yes, Ray Gun.
Okay. You can't see it, but I'm putting breakdancing in air quotes.
Yeah. Ray Gun happened.
Yep.
Best moment of the Olympics.
For anyone who didn't see it, Colin, can we get a little bit about exactly who that is?
She's. I don't want to call her a breakdancer because
because she isn't.
She's something.
She tried her best.
She did something on the mat. Is that what they call it in breakdancing? The mat.
I don't know.
That was yeah. I can't really describe it as breakdancing, but it was something.
Yes. Anything else from the Olympics?
Than,
as I said, us getting DMCA'd, which made me mad.
Yeah. Couple things. French great Teddy Riner with 2 more golds in judo, probably his final Olympics. USA won bronze in women's rugby, an epic final play there. US women's soccer climbs back to the top. Emma Hayes, her first major tournament as US women's head coach, they win the gold. And then Charlie, USA men and women win basketball gold medals in a couple of incredible games, especially
we'll get to those in a minute.
Especially impressive performances from Steph Curry in the semis and the finals.
All right, let's real quick go through the NFL. The Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls, their third in the last 5 years, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, their 4th overall.
Fourth, correct.
They beat the 49ers in overtime. This is the 3rd championship, as I said, for Mahomes, Kelsey, and Coach Andy Reid. Which has led to some growing conversations about Mahomes on the GOAT list. It will, drastically increase his chances of becoming the GOAT if he wins it this year for a three-peat, which, is looking pretty good. They're 15-1 right now in the regular season. But we also had some notable retirements at the end of this season. In 2024, Jason Kelsey, Aaron Donald, and then in the coaching world, both Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, who is now coaching at the University of North Carolina. Speaking of the NFL, there is no parity. It's all gone.
No. It's done.
The NBA took it all.
Yeah. Speaking of the
there
NBA,
are great teams and then there are bad teams, which I think we already talked about. Speaking of basketball, the Celtics won their 18th championship. They now have the most of all time, breaking a tie with the Los Angeles Lakers. Jaylen Brown winning Finals MVP. For regular season MVP, it was Nikola Jokic winning his 3rd in 4 years. And also this year, the Bucks win the 2nd ever NBA Cup. LeBron and Bronny played together for the first time. Klay Thompson left the Warriors to join Dallas. The NBA and TNT ended after 35 years.
Well, set to end. It'll officially end.
Yes, it hasn't ended yet, but it will end. Derrick Rose retired. LeBron James passed 40,000 points. The NBA banned DeJounte Porter for gambling. And didn't he just receive a sentence for that?
I do think he just got arrested or something.
He did.
There was something in the news about him. I didn't get it for this episode. He's facing some sort of charges. Well, no, he pled guilty. That's what it was.
Yep. In the WNBA, Caitlin Clark was drafted number 1 overall in a huge headlining draft class, which will help that league for years to come. There's obviously the culture war between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The New York Liberty take the title. NBA headlines a massive year in women's sports viewership, huge increases across the board, and Candace Parker retires. Anything else for you there, Colin?
Not in the WNBA. Let's move on to the MLB.
Right, let's move on to the MLB. The Dodgers defeat the Yankees in the World Series with an incredible Game 1, a home run that we will remember forever in baseball lore. Freddie Freeman's home run to win him World Series MVP.
Yeah.
Dodgers apparently are the only team that figured out that spending money is a good thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Stanton, we have some news for you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Yankees, they blew Game 5 with awful
Yes, and
defense.
yes. Shohei Ohtani has a historic first year with the Dodgers, becoming the first ever 50-50 player. Aaron Judge
Unbelievable.
and Juan Soto might just be the best duo in baseball. We'll see. Freeman and Ohtani might have a
Well,
claim
they
to that.
were.
Yes, they were. Until Soto decided to switch to New York teams and sign the biggest contract in the history of professional sports.
Somehow bigger than Ohtani's.
Yep.
Even
The
though
Oakland,
we
the
saw what
Oakland
Ohtani
A's,
did
the
this year.
Oakland A's, no longer the Oakland A's, now just the Athletics as they move up to Sacramento and to eventually Vegas, but maybe not because that's a horrible idea and probably won't work.
Yeah.
Otani's interpreter got arrested for stealing a bunch of money. Angel Hernandez got fired for being generally incompetent. Bob Costas retired from calling baseball games due to age. And Joey Votto retired as a pretty good player for the Reds. Speaking of the Reds, this was not a great year for them, capped by the loss of the legendary Pete Rose.
Sure. We'll also well, Charlie, you got to meet Bob Costas this year.
I did get to meet Bob Costas
And
this
then
year.
Angel Hernandez, it wasn't officially dubbed a firing. He was pushed out the door, and thank goodness for that.
All right. Well, see, I don't care what the league calls it or what he's called it. They throw him out. He called it, just being removed. But
Yeah.
Angel Hernandez not known pretty well for missing calls.
Yeah. All right.
In the NHL, the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup in an absolute battle with the Edmonton Oilers. Panthers led 3-0. Oilers came all the way back, but Canada is still denied the cup.
Yep. In world soccer, a couple big tournaments this year. Argentina won Copa America. Spain winning the Euro. Against England. In what? Correct me if I'm wrong. It was Southgate's final tournament as the coach of England.
Yes. Also, this still remains the fact that England is the only European country to have not won the Euro but won the World Cup.
That's wild. Real Madrid won the Champions League this year again.
Man City won the Prem and then died.
Yeah, they completely followed off. We'll see if they can turn it around
not
next year.
Seventh.
Yeah, that's true.
The LA Galaxy won their 6th MLS Cup. And Alex Morgan retired. And you know what, Colin? I'm going to need some more pronunciation.
There also
Thank you.
Retiring the goalie for the U.S. And she had another big performance in goal at the Olympics this summer. Yes.
In college sports, Michigan won the college football playoff. We'll talk a little bit about their cheating, but maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a Huskies fan. Jim Harbaugh leads Michigan for the Chargers. The college football landscape forever changes with now a 12-team playoff and the Pac-12 no longer existing in any, meaningful form.
Well, yeah, and more realignment than just that, right? Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC.
Yes, but Colin, one of the Power 5 conferences simply vanishing off the face of the planet is pretty important.
No, that's the biggest realignment story from this year. There were others, and there will continue to be more, I'm sure, as well.
In some big games from this season, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt somehow, and then lost again in a horrible game to Oklahoma. Michigan takes down Ohio State in a game that Ohio State desperately needed to win. Ole Miss misses the playoffs because they just decided to not win games that they should. Northern Illinois wins the biggest game in their program's history by taking down Notre Dame. Florida State basically flips their record, going from 13-0 to 2-10. Indiana, Arizona State, and SMU come out of nowhere to make the playoffs, and then 2 of them forgot they made the playoffs in the first round. Travis Hunter wins the Heisman after an incredible 2-way season. Shouldn't have won it, but that's just my opinion. It should have been Ashton Genty. Deion Sanders led Colorado to a much improved season, but still not to the playoffs. We'll see what he can do next year. Ashton Genty has a historic season for Boise State. Nick Saban retires from coaching. Caitlin DeBoer takes over Alabama and then fails to make the playoffs.
Yeah, quick on college football before we move on to other college sports. This is an incredible college football regular season that we had this year. Probably the best ever.
Yep, I think so. We just considering the amount of chaos we had, and there's a couple of games on here that we will talk about in our 10 best sports things, events, games of the year.
Yep.
You'll see why we've labeled it that in a minute. Yes, let's get back to basketball. Dan Hurley and UConn win the second straight men's championship. An incredible championship leading into March Madness. We were watching some of the games, I think, on the way back from Topgolf, were we not?
Yeah, we were. That was a fun experience.
Yeah, we were. Oakland takes down Kentucky in the first round in an absolutely crazy game. Tony Bennett retires from coaching. South Carolina wins the women's tournament after an undefeated season. Caitlin Clark, before heading off to the WNBA, led Iowa back to the final. Colin, I need some more help pronouncing things.
Yeah, Tara Vanderveer retires from coaching. Obviously, the legendary Stanford coach Lisa Bluder, the legendary Iowa coach, retires from coaching. And then Penn State, just recently wins the women's volleyball title. We do not normally talk about women's volleyball on the show. However, this is notable because
talk about volleyball ever.
Yeah, their coach, Katie Schumacher, Colley, becomes the first female coach ever to win the women's volleyball title. She does so while battling breast cancer, which she was diagnosed with back a couple months ago.
And then just in some other miscellaneous things that we couldn't, really include in any of the major categories. Max Verstappen wins his 4th straight Formula One title, despite having a car that was not exactly the best for the second half of the season. He holds off challenges from both Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris to secure his title, and what is surely to be a great season in 2025. Joey Logano wins his 3rd NASCAR championship after holding off his teammate Ryan Blaney at Phoenix Raceway. NASCAR set to do some expanding into Mexico next year. Novak Djokovic wins Olympic gold, but no other tournaments. Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz emerge as the 2 best men's tennis players in the world. Colin, I'm going to need some more help with pronunciation.
Yeah, sure. Arina Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek continue to battle for the top 2 women's tennis players in the world. Sabalenka winning the Aussie Open and the U.S. Open. Swiatek winning just the French Open this year, I believe. But in terms of slams, but several other major tournaments as
and
well.
The big one, Rafael Nadal retires as well.
As well as Andy Murray, yep, 2 just icons of the sport.
Scotty Scheffler emerges as the best golfer in the world. Also, very good golfer getting arrested, apparently. He won the Masters and several other major tournaments and Olympic gold. Rory McIlroy blew another opportunity for a major. U.S. wins the President's Cup. U.S. beats Pakistan in a historic cricket upset. I think it's funny that there was those 3 days where people in the U.S. were talking about cricket, and then we forgot it existed again.
Well, they never knew it existed before that, and then all of a sudden, wait, we're good at it for a minute?
And then Joey Chestnut got banned from the hot dog eating contest. How are you going to... That's like banning Patrick Mahomes from football.
Yeah, and I mean, what he got banned for was the dumbest thing ever. It's because he took an endorsement deal with another brand.
Yes, from a hot dog brand that was like veggie hot dogs, no?
Yeah, vegan or something. Like vegan hot dogs. All right, Charlie.
You have shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
All right, now it's time for what you've all been waiting for. Our top 10 sporting events of 2024.
You want to go back and forth? You do one, I'll do the next.
All right, coming in at number 10 in March Madness, Oakland versus Kentucky. One of the best March Madness games, probably the best March Madness game, in my opinion, for this year's tournament. It always throws up chaos, and we got what we wanted.
Yeah, definitely the biggest upset in the tournament this year. Also, probably just the best game overall in the tournament. You could argue Kansas-Samford maybe, except, the horrific call.
Samford got robbed.
Yeah. Coming in at number 9, Super Bowl 58. You feel like you kind of got to include the Super Bowl on the list, especially...
Yeah, unless it was the couple before that.
Well, sure, but it really was a very, very good Super Bowl.
Great game.
Super Bowl, not a ton of bad officiating in this one. It goes to overtime. Both teams score in overtime. I mean, right? Like, what else can you really ask for in a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Great game. Number 8, Charlie?
Number 8. The men's 100-meter final. The greatest 10 seconds of the Olympics.
Yep.
I mean, there's not much else to say. It is people doing things that should not be physically possible.
Correct. And it came down to what? 5,000ths, I think, this year?
Yeah. One of the closest. All right. Yeah. Number 7.
Number 7, Georgia Tech, Charlie. This was an incredible game. Yes, there was some iffy officiating in it, undeniable. However, 8 overtimes, just truly amazing. Not necessarily the result I was hoping for in this game. I always am rooting for the underdog in games like this, but Georgia
when it comes to clean old-fashioned hate, nothing better.
Yep, exactly.
No, is this number 6?
Number 6, yes.
The Sugar Bowl. College football playoffs. Washington, Texas. What a game. Super competitive throughout. Texas with the last drive almost gets there, but Washington's able to hold off Texas's true coming back for one more year. We'll see what Texas can do this year.
Yeah, well, and of course we like how Washington set Texas up for that because of a really dumb play call at the end of the day.
Yep. Caitlin
To
DeBoer.
give them time on the clock.
Caitlin DeBoer.
Number 5, I think this is, Stanley
Yes.
Cup Finals Game 7. This could arguably be higher on the list. What are the 2 best words in sports? Game 7. We had one this year for a championship for the first time in, well, a long time, I think since the World Series in 2019, unless I'm mistaken. And
Yeah, no, you're right.
it was a 1-score game, playoff hockey at the end. Just it's unbelievable. And this game absolutely delivered. The whole series really delivered, even if we think it would at first. This is very worthy, in my opinion, of number 5 on the list.
Number 4, another thing with the Olympics, the men's 1,500 meter final.
Yeah, unbelievable. Right, this was expected to be the race of Jacob Ingebrigtsen versus Josh Kerr. Right,
Yep.
Ingebrigtsen did not even make the podium because Cole Hawker, final lap, comes out of absolutely nowhere to pass Ingebrigtsen, pass Josh Kerr, and win this race in a stunning victory.
Yeah, and obviously, that too. But also, the Ingebrigtsen Kerr rivalry will continue, of course.
Yes, it will.
All right. Number 3. Colin.
Number 3, World Series Game 1. Unbelievable ending to this one. Right, the walk-off home run, instant iconic moment. In extra innings, right, in the 10th inning. It's a great game, start to finish. It wasn't just a phenomenal ending. Ended up setting the stage for the Dodgers to win the World Series in their first year with Ohtani, to beat the Yankees, who still haven't won since 2009. An
Good.
incredible game.
Well, yeah, first of all, let's keep it that way. And number 2, the doubleheader between the Mets and the Braves.
Specifically the first one.
Particularly game 1. I mean, what else can you say? It's the Mets.
And look, they were down They were down several runs heading into the 8th inning. They take the lead. They blow it in a heartbreaking fashion in the bottom of the 8th, and then they retake it.
Mets take the lead, then Mets themselves.
And then get it back.
Yes.
Yeah. And win the game. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable game. One that definitely people in New York are going to be talking about for a long time. Atlanta will probably want to forget, even though they did end up later that day. Right, like the fact that it sealed a playoff spot for the Mets made it all the more of a spectacular game. Charlie, before we get to number 1, let's do a couple of honorable mentions. You want to go for it?
Let me run through these. We got Lakers Warriors in January. The very stupid decision for the Warriors to foul on LeBron right at the end of the game.
Yeah.
The Amber Health 400 at Atlanta. The 3-way duel to the line with Suarez coming out on top for Trackhouse Racing and locking his spot into the playoffs for NASCAR. Warriors Lakers again on Christmas just a few days ago. Something magical happens when these two come together.
Yes, it does.
Doesn't end well for you guys, though, does it, Colin?
No, doesn't.
We have Oregon, Ohio State, one of the games of the year.
And it could be another one on January 1st next year.
Oh, there absolutely could be. Lions 49ers NFC Championship game. Detroit on the cusp of a Super Bowl, and then collapses in the second half. Detroit fans, you don't need to worry. This is your year. You got it.
Sure.
If your entire team doesn't fall apart on the plane of the game.
Yep.
And then both of the Olympic finals, both of them same teams, USA and France. Curry with one of the most famous 2 minutes of basketball. He hits the first one. He hits the second one. You're thinking, no shot, he hits the third one. And then he hits the fourth one.
The fourth one was one of the most ridiculous shots I've ever seen live.
Yes. And he might be the only guy on the planet who would actually hit that shot.
He was the only guy on the planet that would shoot that with KD and LeBron wide open on the other side of the court.
Yep. But that means, and I think you may have already figured it out, that our C&C Talks best sporting event game thing of the year is Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, Charlie, this game...
Hey, Colin? I have to say, we've talked about some amazing things on this. This one wasn't close.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing was going to come close to this game. Two
Yeah.
powerhouses of the SEC, the best conference in college football, going at it in one of the games of the year, the games of the decade, and one of the best college football games I've ever seen.
Yeah. So, right, here's the thing: we were not together when we were watching this game, and we did end up calling each other during, like, pretty much constantly for the last couple minutes of this game. Like, this game looked like it was over at the end of the first quarter, right? Alabama was dominating Georgia in a way I've never seen anyone dominate Georgia before. And then, but at the end of the game, by the end of the game, I was like, I do not have words for what I just watched. And 3 months later, I'm still not sure I do. It was incredible, unbelievable that the Ryan Williams play at the end of the game, just one of his many outstanding plays that game and really all season. Like, it's just, I don't know how you top that game. I do not know how you top it.
It's Alabama, it's Georgia, and it's the SEC.
Yeah.
And you know what? As corny as it may sound, it just means more.
It just meant more. Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap up with the traditional three things that we end off with. Major events we haven't talked about, our in memoriam section, and we get to see just how wrong we were.
Yeah.
Just 360 days ago when we did this all last year. And you know what? I was out east, as I usually am this time of year. So, to end out our year, let's end up major events, in memoriam, and our predictions.
All right. Some major events. Solar eclipse seen through large parts of the United States this year for the first time since 2017. Aurora Borealis, stunning appearances through the lower 48 this year. Diddy, we haven't talked about this much on the podcast. He was finally arrested in a major sex trafficking scheme. Horrific hurricanes hitting the southeast this year. Wicked became kind of the breakout movie at the end of this year. O.J. Simpson died. Taylor Swift wraps up her iconic Eras tour. Then Charlie, who can forget at the beginning of the year the Boeing airplane disaster, and frankly the disaster that is their whatever they call it, the space shuttle that's on the ISS at the moment. Lots of disasters for that company this year.
Yeah. All right, Colin, you want to do the in memoriam section? I'll talk about our predictions and we'll get out of here.
Yep. All right. All right. So we like to, as one of the final things we do on this podcast every year, going to wrap up by just talking about some of the famous people that we did lose this year. And let's start with Alexei Navalny, James Earl Jones, Bill Walton, Willie Mays, Ricky Henderson, Joe Lieberman, Greg Gumbel, who just died today, Maggie Smith, Liam Payne, Akebe Mutombo, Chris Christopherson, Toby Keith, Jerry West, Carl Weathers, and so many more that we just do not have the time to mention on this episode. But rest in peace to all of the above and more.
All right, so to revisit what we said in January, in regards to the presidential election, we both thought that Joe Biden would defeat Donald Trump. How wrong we were.
That did not go well, because Biden did not even end up in the race at the end of the day.
No, and the Democratic candidate didn't win anyway.
Yeah.
We both thought the Democrats would win the House, and both thought the Republicans would win the Senate. Well, we were half right.
We're half right, yeah.
We were half right. In the Trump trials, I thought there wouldn't be one this year, and Colin thought that he would be convicted in one case, and not yet serving a sentence.
I nailed that one.
Yes, you did. Yeah. In the Olympics, we both thought that the U.S. would win the most gold medals, and well, we were correct, but not really.
Well, no one won more gold medals than.
No, but we tied.
Yeah.
In the Olympics, in the Super Bowl, we both thought that the Baltimore Ravens would win. Colin thought that they would beat San Francisco. I thought they would beat Detroit. So Colin is more right, but we were both very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, all of those teams though ended up in the final four teams though this year.
Yep. In the World Series, I thought the Diamondbacks would beat the Rangers in a World Series rematch. Colin thought the Rangers would beat the Dodgers. Again, you're more right, but that's both very wrong.
Very humiliatingly wrong.
Considering that one of those teams didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, correct. And neither did the Diamondbacks.
Two of those teams did not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
In the NBA Finals, I thought it would be OKC who would beat Boston. You thought it was Boston that would beat Dallas. And Colin, well done to you.
Yeah, I'm decently proud of that one.
In the Stanley Cup, we both picked the Kraken as a joke because we don't really follow hockey that much. This year, let's try to give an actual prediction, please.
Yeah, I think we will.
In the March Madness, you thought Arizona would win the men's bracket. I picked UConn. Hey, there we go. I finally get one.
You got one, yep.
We both thought that Iowa would win the women's bracket.
No.
We got close, but nope.
In hindsight, we should have just picked South Carolina.
We should have. Colin, you thought the Labor would win a plurality, but not a majority in the UK.
I was wrong, but
were
more
wrong.
right than you.
Well, no, because I didn't make a prediction. I said that
Yeah.
I didn't really know, and you decided that that was not an opinion, apparently.
That's not an opinion. That's not a bold take.
So, Colin, one more thing before we leave.
Yeah.
What do you think of this year, man? This season? How this what we've done on this show? Everything in the world. Just anything to leave us out on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we start by just taking a look back at season 3 of C&C Talks, right? Not quite as many episodes as we hoped for, not quite as consistent as we hoped for. Guys, we promise we will try to do better in season 4, without a doubt. However, what we did do a lot of this year, Charlie, like a lot of, is live streams, and really enjoyed that. Gonna try to do a whole bunch more in 2025.
I think we accidentally killed After Hours, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe that can be relaunched. We'll see.
Maybe that can be relaunched. I'm kind of doing my own thing with that, but we'll find out.
Any other podcast news this year?
Not necessarily in podcast news, but in terms of like doing stuff like this. I started doing my own little thing, Slideshow Sports. You can go check that out if you want to. In terms of podcast stuff, I'm really proud of what we've done this year. I understand that we didn't, do exactly what we were, set out to do. But this was, I think, a historic year for us in terms of, stuff we did, stuff we talked about. I'm really proud of what we've done this year. Even if you're looking at the numbers, this year wasn't quite as good as last year. But I think the quality of our episodes was better this year than last year. And as we move into 2025 and season 4 of our show, I can't wait to see what we're up to, Colin.
Yeah. I will say also we lost about 400 followers on Twitter this year, because the bots were all purged.
Well, yes, and then the bots will come back.
And then, inevitably the bots will come back next time there's an election.
I was noticing that. I went from, I think, about 83 followers to, I think, 24.
Yep, that's what happens. All right, Charlie, final thoughts in 2024 and looking forward into 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly next year will be the last 6 months, and the next 6 months will certainly be a massive turning point in the United States and in the world. Things are changing, some would say for the better and some would say for the worse. Our country is now on a far different path than it was last year, and certainly that it was just 4 years ago. Just not just next week, or I believe maybe potentially the week after that. We are going to solidify the election and the victory of person who instigated an insurrection and an attempted coup on the government on the same day 4 years previously. That same person will be sworn in by the person who they have defeated electorally and was sent to office by a majority of this country. What comes next in the next year and in the next 4 years, I don't know. But what I will say is I'm happy to have someone like you and someone with the whole crew here at C&C Talks to be covering, this crazy world, this crazy country, this crazy city we live in. And I can't wait to see what the years to come bring.
Yep. All right. I will echo all of that. I will add on to that. Right. It's been a challenging year on the personal level, on the national level, on so many levels. But I will say we started the year talking. Could this be the year of true accountability? Is that where we're headed? It's something that we actually named one of our episodes after this year, and in some ways, right? In some ways, we saw it. Right, we saw Trump finally held to some level of account for his crimes by being convicted in New York. We saw some people that had done wrong, such as Rudy Giuliani and Alex Jones, finally have to pay for the people to the people that they harmed. Right, we saw it like even in the baseball world. Right, we saw a person like Angel Hernandez finally held to account for years of being absolutely off his job, right? And then at the end of the year, right, we see something like the person that committed all these felonies is an adjudicated rapist, etc., etc. Right? We saw that person elected president of the United States. So
Yep.
I'm not entirely sure what to make of the world, what to make of our country at the moment. Is it just that people are just discontent with the system? I think that's kind of the big thing, and I think that we saw a lot of that too just recently with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO and all of the information about it that we talked about earlier in the episode. So I think that's kind of where the world is at, and I'm just going to be straight up about it. That's not a great place to be, and it reminds us of just how much work needs to be done and how much, because of people's thoughts like that, and because of the election, how little of that progress in the next 4 years. There's a pretty good chance a lot of this stuff gets worse. So I wish I could leave with a more optimistic message than that. I felt a lot of optimism for a large portion of the year 2024. In the last few weeks, that optimism is kind of faded away, but we'll be here to cover whatever happens next. Grateful to everybody on this podcast, Charlie, Morris, Zack, our entire team. But I think that'll do it for season 3, guys, of C&C Talks. We've made it through yet another season. Thanks so much for joining us all season long. Please do subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you listen to podcasts. Our website, cctalks.com, has everything you need to know about the show. You can call us with your questions, 360-389-2630, and that's 360-389-2630. You can follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. You can follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. Follow me at Colin A. Becker. Follow our producer Morris at Morris in Life. Follow Zack at Z Simonson on Twitter, and we're also going to more on this in the new year, but we are starting to expand our social media presence to Blue Sky. We'll have more on that soon. Join our Discord server. We'd love to interact with you guys more. cctalks.com/Discord. All of this information and more is in the description below. But we will be back early January. We've yet to set an official date for our season 4 premiere, but rest assured, we will be back after a week or so away from this podcast and gonna finish enjoying our holiday season. We look forward to seeing you all in the new year. But for now, for producer Morris, production designer Zack, I'm Colin.
I'm Charlie, and we will see you next year.